There's a specific kind of game that doesn't ask for your attention politely. It doesn't even ease you in. It doesn't explain itself in a neat elevator pitch, per se. It just opens the door, shows you the horizon, and quietly dares you to walk far enough to understand what you've pretty much signed up for. Crimson Desert looks like one of those games. That alone already makes it divisive. Not broken, not flawed, divisive by design, because Crimson Desert isn't trying to be comfortable, it's trying to be capacious. And why am I saying that? Because it wants to hold systems, genres, tones, and philosophies that don't always live peacefully together, and then hand the responsibility to your player to make sense of it. That's not gonna be for everyone. Honestly, that might be exactly why this game actually matters. From the moment Perlebiz began showing Crimson Desert, reactions have followed a familiar rhythm. You see awe, excitement, skepticism, cautious optimism, and all followed by the inevitable sentence, "This looks too good to be true," which it did. It's a phrase the game seems magnetically drawn to. Every new trailer, every extended showcase of gameplay and interview reignite the same debate. Not over whether it looks impressive, but whether it can possibly hold together eventually. 6 years ago, those doubts made sense. A studio known primarily for Black Desert Online announcing a massive single-player narrative-driven open-world action adventure filled ambitious to the point of recklessness. Today, after, dozens of gameplay reveals, deep dive interviews, and hand-on previews, the conversation has pretty much shifted. The question is no longer can they build it? The question is what kind of experience are they actually building? Crimson Desert doesn't slot cleanly into an RPG box, you see, and Perlebiz has been surprisingly firm about that. This is not a branching narrative driven by dialogue choices and morality meters. It's a third-person, open-world action-adventure rooted in player expression through mechanics, not menus. You are role-playing a version of this character shaped by choices of a dialogue wheel. You're role-playing through movement, combat style, preparation, and at the same time, of course, experimentation, a lot of it. This distinction matters. Because Crimson Desert's philosophy is not about asking you who you want to be, it's about asking how you want to approach the world that you're playing. And that's why its system feels less prescriptive and more like a toolbox that's just dumped on your feet. You can climb, dive, glide, ambush, brute force, outsmart, retreat, return later. If the bosses are too strong, you can walk away. The region's overwhelming, just explore somewhere else. Gears limiting your progress? No problem, the solution isn't a quest marker, it's just curiosity. That freedom is sort of intoxicating for some players, at the same time paralyzing some other players. And that's pretty much where Crimson Desert starts to quietly separate itself from its pack. The game's world is not just big for the sake of marketing bullet points. Yes, it's larger than Skyrim. It surpasses Red Dead Redemption 2 in sheer landmass apparently, but scale alone doesn't impress anyone. We know that. Density does, and this game's world appears obsessed with density. Rivers that aren't just visual set dressings but reactive systems, weather that affects combat, elemental interactions that don't scream puzzle solution but sit there waiting for you to notice them. On another hand, lighting conducts through water, ices do reshape terrains, gravity isn't a suggestion, it's an invitation in this game. This isn't the kind of open world that funnels you gently from activity to activity. It's a kind that almost shrugs and says, you'll figure it out someday. For players, basically for players who are raised on tightly curated experiences, that can feel disorienting. For players who miss getting lost, it just feels like a breath of fresh air. And yet, even with all that freedom, Crimson Desert is not some aimless sandbox. It seems there's a spine to the experience. The character's journey to reunite with the mercenaries gives the game narrative momentum, but Pearl Abyss has also been intentionally restrained in how much of that story it's willing to show. The restraint has unnerved some people, obviously. In an industry where story hooks are often front-labeled to sell the fantasy, Crimson Desert, all things considered, keeps its cards pretty close. We know there's a layer conflict, we know the Abyss plays a central role in this game, we know the game's world is fractured by factions, regions, and competing ideologies, which is great. What we don't know deliberately is how much of that story unfolds quietly, sideways, or through systems rather than cutscenes. That ambiguity is either a warning sign or a promise, depending on the player. The introduction of 2 additional playable characters only complicates that picture further, if you think about it. And again, that feels sort of intentional. Each new character doesn't just add flavor, they introduce entirely different mechanical identities, different rhythms, different combat philosophies. This isn't a cosmetic swap, it's Pearl Abyss effectively saying you don't have to experience the world the same way twice. That's exciting, it's also quite risky, because ambition has a cost. You know, the more systems you add, the more coherence you have to maintain. A game can be large, reactive, beautiful, mechanically dense, and still feel hollow if those pieces don't meaningfully overlap. And that we think is the fear hovering around Crimson Desert like a storm cloud. Not that it'll be bad, but that it might feel unfocused. Some reviews actually have hinted at that specific tension. Castle sieges that impress mechanically but don't yet emotionally resonate, boss fights that feel spectacular but narratively thin, moments of brilliance surrounded by questions rather than answers. But here's where Crimson Desert earns a little more patience than most. Pearl Abyss has been unusually transparent about its progress. They've openly acknowledged feedback, particle effects overwhelming the screen, toggle them off. Performance concerns, targeted optimization, including PlayStation 5 enhancements. Well, I don't know, difficulty spikes, leave, grow stronger, return. This isn't a studio pretending it knows better than its audience, it's just one that actively negotiates with it. More importantly, or more to the point, the game has officially gone gold. There's no vaporware escape hatch anymore. Crimson Desert's real, finished almost, and committed to its March release. And that really changed the conversation, because it's not a concept anymore, it's an experience that's about to collide with millions of expectations at once. And expectations are the real danger here. Why, you might ask? With over 2 million wishlists, Crimson Desert is not just being judged as a game, it's being judged as a statement. Every player projects something different onto it. Some want the next Witcher, some want Breath of the Wild with combat depth, some want Dragon's Dogma's chaos, some want spectacle, some want narrative intimacy. Crimson Desert can't be all of those things at once, but it doesn't really need to be either. It just really needs to be confident in what it is. And we think what it seems to be is a game that values engagement over explanation. A world that doesn't care if you see everything, a design philosophy that assumes play will miss content, and be okay with that. In an era, obsessed with completion percentages and checklists, that's quietly radical. But not everyone will, like it. Some players will bounce off the sheer density mechanics, others will definitely feel lost without clearer narrative direction, some will finish the story and just walk away, others will spend days just mining, crafting, experimenting, and still feel like they've barely started. And obviously that's not a failure state, that is a spectrum. Crimson Desert is not promising perfection, it's promising possibility, and that distinction matters, because the most memorable games aren't always the most polished, they're the ones that just trust players enough to meet them halfway. If Crimson Desert stumbles, it won't be because it aimed too high, it's because ambition is expansive. But if it succeeds, even imperfectly, it could stand alongside the great open world experiments. Not because it did everything right, but because it dared to try so much at once. And maybe that's just the point. Crimson Desert doesn't need to be for everyone. It's just need to be for someone, unapologetically and confidently. And all you have to see is to find out when the game finally lands on March 19.